and welcome to That Was Genius, the little history podcast in which two friends who used to be on different sides of the world and are now mere hundreds of miles apart exchange history stories on a topic each week. We decide the topic a week in advance, but everything else that happens is a surprise. I say we decide the topic a week in advance. We actually decided the topic 2 days ago when we recorded our last episode. So this one is going to be quality.
I've got 3 pages of notes again.
Have you?
Yeah, people are starting to call me Tommy 3-page.
Of course, you haven't listened to the last episode, so you don't know that I edited out all the stuff about how exhaustive your notes were. So...
I have actually. I haven't listened to it all, but I did listen to a little bit while I was doing the washing up. Nobody has.
Yeah, well, actually, all sadness aside, it would really help us out if you did tell your friends about us. I'd say we're struggling a little bit with motivation, being locked inside all day, so... If you could tell your friends, it would do us a massive, massive, massive favour and boost our flagging morale somewhat.
My morale's high.
My morale for the podcast is high. It's sky high. It's just everything else in life.
Morale for life in general is just dropping. Fair enough.
This podcast's all I've got left. So, what's our topic this week, Tom?
The topic is sidekicks.
Sidekicks.
Which is suitable, isn't it? Because you're kind of my sidekick in this podcast.
And you're kind of my side chick in life.
I make it look like I'm the technologically incompetent one, and I let you do all the presenting, but really, you know...
Really, you're only making it look that way. You're only making it look like you're technically incompetent.
Yeah. I'm fundamental to this. I'm the guy that makes this all work.
You really are. Well, otherwise it would just be one angry man in his spare bedroom.
Talking about how he's been self-isolating for hours on end. Yeah.
This way, we've got 2 angry men in their spare bedrooms. Yeah. Twice the fun.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I'm slightly less angry, but slightly more right-wing.
Yeah. Because I'm quite left-wing, and generally a bit of a curmudgeonly old git. I love everyone, and yet also hate them.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm a dichotomy, me.
I'm a cheerful racist.
Oh, that's the best kind of racist.
Yeah.
And from whence the comedy arises. Tom's not actually a racist, and I'm centrist at best.
No, I'm very, very much not a racist. Quite the opposite. I like to go out of my way to treat everyone badly.
Yes, absolutely. Likewise, I'm socialist in my hatred. I take hatred that would be directed towards the rich, and I give that hatred to the poor. In essence, I'm a regular angry Lenin, yes.
I thought you were saying regular angry Robin Hood. Right, so how did you find this week? I found this week quite good. I thought this was a good topic.
I thought I was going to struggle when this was first suggested, and I did struggle, and so I've cheated.
Oh, fair enough. My notes pretty much wrote themselves on this one.
Oh, is this going to be one of those ones where you just read a source for 10 minutes?
No. Although there is one very long quote. But no, I started researching this, and boom, it just came out all over the page.
Wow.
I know. It's
the power of self-isolating, isn't it?
I was that excited about it. And I have chosen a reasonably well-known topic, but I do quite like to fluctuate from the obscure and vulgar to areas of history that listeners might actually have heard a bit about, but they want to know more about. You know, some sort of historical topics that are good for everybody to know. So that's where I've gone this week.
Excellent. Fair enough. Well, I've gone for a duel. And all good duels, Tom, have seconds. And they're my sidekicks, the seconds.
Right.
However, they play very little part in the story. And what part they do play is essentially useless.
Okay, so it's a tenuous link to the theme.
At best, but it's a really good story. Yeah, it's a great story. You know what I like, Tom? I like a good far-fetched story that makes you say, and Google to see if it actually happened. Which in this case, in a double cheat, it probably didn't. So...
Oh, well, don't tell anyone that. Pretend it's all true.
It was fake news.
What shall we flip?
Oh, well,
I've got a slipper, and I use them to kick people occasionally.
Ah, yeah. Can you kick to the side with your slipper?
I can.
Do you know what? Here's a funny story. It's not really a funny story, but it's a story from my childhood, so I'm going to regale us with it and then choose whether to edit it out or not.
Okay, come on then, Grandad. We'll all gather round.
I used to go to a lot of gigs with my dad because he liked the same music as me.
Well,
and
Chris Rea. I mean,
trying to think of anyone sadder than Chris Rea. No, it's not coming. So we used to go to quite a few bands together, quite a few bands together. And my dad had a false leg. My dad lost his leg in a motorbike accident when he was 16.
Boring. Come on, try again.
And he used to...
Your dad only had one leg. Could you not do something better with that? Come on.
Well...
Make up a story.
Well, in these gigs, Tom, he would rotate his false leg to the side and then just kick me with in time with the music with incredible force. Until I told him to piss off.
Which is really, really annoying when it was a status quo gig. Because it's just really, really repetitive. Bang, bang, kick, kick.
God, I can
2 hours.
I can literally hear status quo in my head to that. There was a band we used to go and see who did a song about having one leg. It was kind of a gospel song.
Oh, it was Rolf Harris.
No, that was Wobble Leg.
Well, that was Jake with his...
Jake the Peg.
Jake the Peg, was it?
Yeah.
With his extra leg, yeah.
And my dad used to take off his false leg and twirl it above his head. like a Viking berserker.
Did it have it attached to a chain?
Yeah, it was on elastic. It was on elastic.
Did it make a noise?
Yeah. It did. Yeah, it made a noise like a vuvuzela when you spun it around above your head, and then when you let it go, so it twanged back into original position, it made a noise like one of those door stops that cats love to play with. Anyway, I've told a story. You go first. Flipping something.
Fair enough. Well, yes, I have a great topic, and it's a great topic because I'm going to talk about 4 individuals connected in a web of sidekickery. So more sidekickery than a conger at a millipede's wedding. Let me introduce Emperor Justinian, General Belesarius, Empress Theodora, and historian Precopius. Now, I'm guessing, because you like your Byzantine history, don't you? You've heard of all these people.
I've heard of all of these people, yes.
How much do you know about all of these people?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot and going to make me look like a right tit. I'm going to say not very much.
Oh, excellent.
Because I want the audience to be filled in. And I'm going to pretend it's not because I've forgotten everything that I learned in my degree.
Well, what I think you will know is that Justinian was responsible for the building of the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul.
He was, which we've both been to, I think, haven't we?
We both have, an architecturally pioneering building. He was.
It's fucking nuts.
It's very, very big, isn't it? And we've mentioned it in previous podcasts. I think we mentioned it when talking about the elite guard. What were they called?
The Varangian Guard.
Varangian Guard, yep. Who have graffitied it, haven't they?
They have indeed.
There's some ancient graffiti.
It's an amazing building. It's this place that it was built by Justinian, and various parts of it were burnt down and rebuilt over the years. But it kind of became a mark of honour that every emperor would stick something onto it. And so it's like the Tower to the Sky. It's a mad hodgepodge of bits and pieces here and there with just sheds and towers stuck out at odd angles. If you look really closely, there's just weird bits all over the place.
Yeah, it is a very odd building, isn't it?
It's amazing. Odd. It's one of my favourite buildings in the world.
Hasn't it influenced... I may be completely off the mark here, but didn't it heavily influence the design of mosques in the Muslim world?
Yes, it did, yeah.
It's just like, I suppose, how the what we consider now to be Turkish baths, we're actually talking about Roman baths, because Turkish baths evolved from Roman baths. Anyway, Justinian was Byzantine emperor from 527 to 565 AD, just to give you an idea of the time frame here. He is also famous for rewriting Roman law, often called the Code of Justinian, and this is a foundation stone of modern law. And incidentally, he didn't write it all by himself. He was slightly better at delegating tasks than that. He's also famous for the reconquest of many areas of the Western Roman Empire from the Ostrogoths and the Vandals. So they were Germanic tribes that had destroyed the Western Roman Empire around a century earlier. Incidentally...
Didn't last long.
No, it didn't last for very long at all. Incidentally, he didn't fight these wars all by himself. He was slightly better at delegating tasks than that. He had General Belisarius to do it for him. More on him to follow.
His sidekick.
Exactly. He's quite the polymath / Jackius of all trades.
Oh, Tom, did you just make a Latin joke when the Byzantines spoke Greek?
Did they?
Yeah.
What would Jackulus? Jacadicius.
Jacathesis?
Jacadicius. And interestingly, Justinian was from a peasant family. Did you know that?
I did, yes, actually, I did.
Yeah, so his uncle Justin the First had started his military career as a basic soldier, and I think he was a pig farmer before that, and worked his way up to emperor, and Justinian himself was from a farming family, I think.
Yes, he never lived it down.
No. But apparently it was quite common in the Byzantine Empire for people to rise up through the ranks from the very bottom based on competency. I know, radical, isn't it?
What the fuck is this?
Bit of a meritocracy going on there.
I know, and then if you were really, really good, you get adopted by the emperor, and then you could kill him and be the emperor.
Well, that's
it's
not
a great
far
system.
off because Justin I was his uncle, and he basically adopted Justinian, and that's how Justinian got his foot into being the emperor. So Justinian was helped during his reign by Empress Theodora, who he married, and this is another sidekick relationship that I'm going to discuss. And Empress Theodora was also from an ordinary family. In fact, Precopius, and we're going to come to him shortly as well, said that she was a prostitute who also performed lots of sex shows on stage. Now, Sam, are you ready for a long but abbreviated quote that tells us all we need to know about Theodora?
I certainly am, and I'm slightly amazed that writing such things did not get one's head chopped off.
Well, we'll come on to that at the very end. So, quote. This is a long quote. Okay. And I've edited out all the best bits, and all the bits that remain are very good. Theodora was still too young to have intercourse with a man after the manner of a woman, but she satisfied the unnatural passions of certain wretches, even the vilest slaves, who followed their masters to the theatre and amused their leisure by this infamy. She remained for some time also in a brothel where she practised this hateful form of vice. First paragraph. Paragraph 2. As soon, however, as she reached the age of puberty, as she was handsome, her mother sent her into a theatrical troupe, and she straightway became a simple harlot, as old-fashioned people call it, for she was neither a musician nor a dancer, but merely prostituted herself to everyone whom she met, giving up every part of her body to debauchery.
It's my favourite thing about the theatre.
She associated chiefly with the theatrical pantomimes and took part in their performances.
Now that's a pantomime with a sex show.
I know.
That's not like any Dick Whittington I've ever seen.
No, but Bobby Davro's certainly keen. Les Dennis was all over it.
Yeah, Widow Twanky'll suck a golf ball out.
Oh, God.
Christopher Biggins, no!
Popping a ping pong ball out of his arse. While the angry sisters catch it in their mouths.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear. She's behind you.
Yeah, you don't want to know where Button's got a name.
Chapter 3. She excelled in raising a laugh by being slapped on her puffed out cheeks, doesn't tell you which type of cheek, and used to uncover herself so far as to show the spectators everything before and behind which decency forbids to show to men. She stimulated her lovers by lascivious jests, and continually invented new postures of coition, by which means she completely won the hearts of all libertines. For she did not wait to be solicited by anyone whom she met, but herself, with jokes and gestures, invited everyone whom she fell in with, especially beardless boys. Poor crikey. Chapter 4.
Oh wow, there's more.
Paragraph 4. Sorry, this is the good one. Hold on. Oh no, this is we're starting to crank up. For she often went to supper at which each one paid his share, with 10 or more young men in the full vigour of their age, and practised in debauchery, and would pass the whole night with all of them. When they were all exhausted, she would go to their servants, 30 in number it may be, and fornicate with each one of them, and yet not even so did she quench her lust.
Wow.
Once she went to the house of some great man.
Even break a sweat.
And while the guests were drinking, pulled up her clothes on the edge of the couch, and did not blush to exhibit her wantonness without reserve. Though she received the male in 3 orifices, she nevertheless complained of nature for not having made the passage of her breasts wider, that she might contrive a new form of coition in that part of her person also. Crikey.
Wow.
You wait. Paragraph 5. Tip of the This is the tip of the iceberg. Often, even on the stage, she stripped before the eyes of all the people and stood naked in their midst, wearing only a girdle about her private parts and groin. In this attitude, she would throw herself down on the ground and lie on her back. Slaves, whose duty it was, would then pour grains of barley upon her girdle, which trained geese would then pick up with their beaks one by one and eat. She did not blush or rise up, but appeared in glory in this performance, for she was not only without shame, but especially fond of encouraging others to be shameless, and often would strip naked in the midst of actors and swing herself backwards and forwards, explaining to those who had already enjoyed her, and those who had not, the peculiar excellences of that exercise. Wow. That is a very long quote, but I didn't know which bits to pick out.
You kept it all. You kept all the best bits in, as indeed she did, from the sounds of it.
Well, so that's Theodora. Regardless of these tendencies, Theodora was actually a fantastic aid to Justinian. For example, during the
from the sounds of it, she helped him quite a lot.
Played a very important role.
Bit of assistance here and there.
Yeah, lending a hand.
Indeed, among other things.
Yes. For example, during the Nika riots, in which two factions of chariot racing fans went nuts, it was Theodora who stopped Justinian.
Fucked them all.
And stopped the riot.
Hooray!
Come on, boys. Bring it on. I'm imagining her a little bit like Cher in that video where she's on a military navy boat. Have you seen that video?
What does Cher do on a navy boat? What is this music video featuring Cher and a boat full of sailors?
Cher navy ship. If I could turn back time, okay, she's basically
right,
on a navy ship with not very much clothes on, parading around in front of lots of sailors. That's kind of what I'm imagining here. If I could turn back time.
If I could turn back time. If I could find a way.
Sam, that is by far the best impression you've ever done on this.
Yeah. Who'd have thought that Cher would be my magnum opus?
You do a fantastic Cher. Far out. That was brilliant. Could you do what was the one that?
Now you said it's good. I'm going to over-try it. I'm going to put too much effort in and over-egg the pudding. You just take what you were given and move on.
No.
And let's never talk of it again.
No, which was come on? Which was the one she did in the 90s?
Do you believe?
That's the one.
I can feel the pain inside my head. I feel it all pain inside my head.
It's a fantastic impression. Wonderful. Anyway, we're not going to beat that. That's the highlight of the episode.
Done. Right. See you next week.
Back to the Nika riots. It was Theodora who stopped Justinian and his inner circle from fleeing Byzantium with her Rocky-style motivational speech, you know. It's not about how hard you can punch, but how hard you can be punched and still keep moving forward.
Right, did she do the speech with a cock in her mouth? Because it certainly sounds like she did.
It started off as an attempt at Sylvester Stallone and merged into Peter Beardsley. This is turned into Atletico Mints.
Yes. God, if only. Fucking only.
Yes. Let's move on to Belesarius quickly. Justinian's kick-ass general and the second sidekick I'm going to mention in detail. So Belisarius too had worked his way up through the ranks of the Byzantine Empire based on his merit, and probably being quite good at politics too. And he actually created a personal bodyguard unit for the emperor and introduced heavy cavalry to the Byzantine Empire. The heavy cavalry that he created was known as the Busalati. Do you know what that translates as, Sam?
No, I don't.
This is going to make you shit your pants, Sam. This is going to strike fear into the hearts of everyone listening to this.
Okay.
It translates as the Biscuit Eaters. Men, draw your shortbreads.
Yes. Well, do you know what? If you can eat 4 cream crackers at once without breaking a sweat, with nothing on them, then you're a man to be feared.
You can join the Busalati. Do you think you're hard enough, do you? I bet you can't eat 4 cream crackers in one go.
I'm just imagining some kind of army recruitment advert now. There's some commandos jumping out of a helicopter.
On my command, men, a volley of custard creams.
Yes. Chocolate hobnobs! Attack!
We're outnumbered. Quick, retreat to the gingerbread house. Retreat.
Beautiful. And why were they called biscuit eaters, Tom?
Do you think I wanted to research that sound when I found out they were called the Biscuit Eaters? I was quite happy with that. I had no interest. In finding out anything more. No, I have no idea. Anyway, Belesarius was an exceptionally successful commander and is widely seen as one of the greatest commanders of all time. Right up there with Alexander the Great.
So you didn't look at why they were called the Biscuit Eaters?
No, I genuinely didn't. I have no idea. I just thought it was brilliant and left it at that. When I'm in an old people's home, there's going to be a little gang. I'm going to get some mates, some other old farts who are flatulent and incontinent, and I'm going to say, yeah, we're the Biscuit Eaters. We terrorise. We own this old people's home.
Your biker gang.
Yeah, and we're going to wander around and just eat whatever biscuits we like.
Oi,
yeah.
geez, you want a Dunkin'?
Yeah, just pushing other people away from the biscuit trolley. Get out of here, mate, they're my biscuits. Belisarius reconquered most of the old Western Roman Empire, as I've mentioned, by defeating the Vandals in North Africa and the Ostrogoths on the Italian peninsula. In total, he almost doubled the size of Justinian's empire. But as you mentioned, it didn't last very long. Anyway, his military successes helped secure Justinian's position on the throne after a difficult start to his reign with the Nika riots. And there is a legend, which is probably not true, that Justinian actually had Belisarius' eyes scooped out after suspecting him of plotting against him. And Belisarius was then left on the streets to beg. But that's probably a myth,
Jesus.
Although I think...
It was quite a common punishment, having your eyes put out in the Byzantine Empire if you pissed off an emperor.
Is that right?
Yeah, being blinded was quite common.
I think a more likely version of the story is that Justinian had Belisarius tried, but I think he actually acquitted him during the trial, put him in his place, and said, "You're getting too big for your boots." But the idea, the story of Belisarius having his eyes scooped out is actually quite a common one in Renaissance art, I think. Now for our final kicks.
They always painted the good stuff, didn't they?
Yeah. They did none of the conquests, none of the victory, none of all the good things Belisarius did. Didn't paint any of Theodora's sex acts, for crying out loud. That would have been much more fun. They just focus on the scooping out the eyes. Now, our final sidekick story. Belisarius had a personal historian following him around called Precopius. And Precopius wrote 2 books that are of interest to us here.
He was both precocious and copious. There was a lot of him, and he was pretty sure he was a fucking good historian.
Talented and fat.
Yeah. Winning combo.
The cocky corpulent. God, there's something else that starts to see. The cocky corpulent cockwangler. Precopius wrote 2 books that are of interest to us. The first was The History of the Wars, and this is very much panegyric, i.e. it was written to praise and celebrate the brilliance of Belisarius, Justinian and Theodora, and this it did. The 3 of them are portrayed very positively, but that's all a tad boring, isn't it? Precopius also wrote The Secret History. The book stands in stark contrast to The History of the Wars, even though it covers basically the same period history and discusses the same individuals. And Precopius just lets rip in this book. The extensive quote from earlier regarding Theodora was from this document. Amongst other things, Precopius likens Justinian to a devil, not just casually. He describes him as having a head that disappears. On one occasion.
Interesting. Yeah. Sounds like reliable history.
Yeah, his head just disappears. Very inconvenient. Embarrassing.
Which is funny, because it only disappears when the biscuit eater's around and happen to very much look like a digestive.
Or Jamie Dodger. Big red eyes and a big red mouth. We will never know why Precopius wrote this second history, but there are 2 plausible explanations. The first is he was disillusioned with Justinian, Belisarius and Theodora and couldn't help himself let rip when he was no longer in their favour. In which case, it's the literary equivalent to stuffing frozen stuffing frozen prawns down the back of the radiator on your last day at work. Not stuffing frozen porn. Icelandic porn. I love a chilly lady.
You know, it's porn to think to, Tom, Icelandic porn, because Icelandic porn has got lots of layers.
and is always read by a Welshman.
Yes.
Isn't it, Sam?
That's right, boyo. Icelandic pornography.
Everyone likes a nice bit of Icelandic pornography, don't they?
Do you know what they also like, Tom? Cheese on toast.
Cheese, a bit of Welsh rarebit, and a good sing-song. A lovely sing-song to a bit of Tom Jones.
What's new, pussycat? Oh, whoa, 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 whoa.
My, Delilah.
Carry on.
Alternatively, it was Precopius's insurance policy in the event of a change of regime, and by this I mean if Justinian were overthrown, we all know what might happen to his inner circle, including Precopius. So Precopius could then pull out this book and say, I never liked him in the first place, look, here's some proof. If it's the latter...
Smart. Or not.
It's a brilliant example of how important it is to thoroughly analyse our assessment of historical figures when we only have a limited range of primary sources to work with. So, what is the purpose of these historical documents? Are we reading an Aeneid, or are we reading a secret history? Is the author celebrating a leader, or are they trying to discredit them? Remember, Sam, the winners write history.
That's true, they do. And who was the winner, Tom?
I don't actually know what happened to Precopius. I haven't put that in my notes.
Oh,
Anyway,
you've got some gap filling to do.
But no, we were talking about sidekicks. I didn't need to know why they were called biscuit eaters, and I didn't want to know what happened to Precopius. Anyway, just to readdress the balance after my unpleasantly credible historical reflection, here's a song that I wrote, Sam. Theodora, we adore her. She's the one that will brighten up your day with a gangbang and a goose, trousers down and shout hooray, Theodora, we adore her. There you go.
Do you know what, I'm glad that you did that, because I was wondering whether to make a Theodora
a
Wizardora joke, and then thought, do you know what? Fucking no one's going to get that.
But me, I'm straight on it.
Yeah. Yet another 90s kids TV reference.
We're going to have to put up links. We're going to have to put up a link to Wizardora, and we're going to have to put up a link to share If I Could Turn Back Time.
I think most people know Cher If I Could Turn Back Time. I don't think that song's going to be news to anyone.
Did you?
I didn't know the video, that's true.
With her parading around like a harlot on a naval ship. With geese everywhere.
With geese.
Barley being thrown liberally around. Ping pong balls going left, right and centre.
Oh, those sailors didn't know what hit them.
No.
Until the massive brawl broke out, at which point all the sailors were hit by seamen. There we go. That's a forced joke that probably won't make the edit.
And we wonder why we don't get the same listens as Atletico Mints.
To be fair, Bob Mortimer has got a few years on us. We'll keep the practice going.
He does. Some of his early stuff's a bit shit. You're right. Oh, God, is it going to take us that long to produce anything of any quality?
They say it takes 10,000 hours, Tom. So, audience, by episode 10,000. Yeah.
Over to you, Sam.
Oh, was that
like
you done?
A good sidekick. Yeah, that's me done. They were my sidekick stories.
There we go. I had heard of them before, but I'd kind of forgotten a lot of it. And it was very interesting. And I never knew about the Biscuit Eaters. Or the odd way in which the riots were ended.
Now, the Biscuit Eaters is very good. I did like the Biscuit Eaters, and I might try and research Biscuit Eaters.
Well, they're going to get a doodle on the website, aren't they?
Exactly.
If nothing else, the Biscuit Eaters are going to get a doodle on the website.
Yeah.
Write that down, Tom. Write that down. And whilst you're doing that, I'm going to cheat this week.
Okay.
As I've warned you, I couldn't find any fun, odd stories about sidekicks particularly. So I've done a duel because I found a really good one. But the seconds, the sidekicks, were absolutely useless and didn't really play much of a part in it at all. So it really is stretching the theme quite broad. If anything, the umpire in this match was the real hero, if there is such a thing.
Okay.
Because the sidekicks were bugger all use. And also, as I've mentioned, and by way of double cheating, it probably never happened, this event. So do take everything with a grain of salt. It's entirely possible the whole thing was made up by an Italian newspaper just to cause a little bit of scandal. At least that's what one of the women involved in it always claimed afterwards.
Right.
So who knows what really happens? And you'll know, Tom, that I said one of the women involved in the duel.
Females, was it?
Yes, because today I'm going to talk about what's known as the emancipated duel between Princess Pauline Matternich and Countess Anastasia Kielmannsegg.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in 1892. And it's the first time that two women, with women as seconds and a woman as an umpire, fought a duel. It was the first all-women duel.
Did it involve jelly?
No, Tom, but they were topless.
I say. What? Where did that come from?
For, as we'll find out, very legitimate medical reasons, it was also fought topless.
Was it a wet t-shirt competition by any chance, Sam?
Well, not even a wet petticoat competition, Tom. No, it was right down to the bare essentials. I see. Now, this was not the first duel between two women. So-called petticoat duels have been going on for decades, if not centuries, under the traditional rules of a pistol shot first, and then you switch to swords if everyone's still alive and uninjured.
Switch to handbags.
You joked, Tom, but these were serious affairs. Those handbags were full of lead shot.
It's just too good an opportunity to be sexist. Don't.
Oh, there's plenty of opportunities to be sexist if you want them, Tom.
Oh my god! Thank you very much.
But yes, these duels really were handbags at dawn. There's one particularly famous example from 1792, which is a century earlier than the duel we're talking about today, in which a Mrs. Elphinstone was challenged to a duel in Hyde Park by one Lady Almeria Braddock.
Elphinstone. We've talked about William Elphinstone before, haven't we?
We did. I don't think they're related.
The general. Was he the incompetent general?
I mean, it could have been his wife. That would be funny.
He was the one that was responsible for the awful retreat
in Afghanistan from Kabul. Yeah.
Kabul, yeah. I wonder whether they're connected.
That would be unusual.
What was her name?
I don't know her first name. It's simply a Mrs. Elphinstone.
Oh, okay.
In the sources.
Interesting.
But, yeah,
she was clearly capable of putting up more fight than
she probably did. She probably did put up more of a fight than her husband.
Showed more strength and discipline.
At least she stood and fought.
Yeah.
So yes, this particularly famous example from 1792, Mrs. Elphinstone was challenged to a duel in Hyde Park by Lady Almeria Braddock after making a poorly timed joke about her age over high tea.
Oh, I say.
Which ended in a glove slap, which ended in a duel.
Far out.
Because she claimed that she was an older lady. So as you can see, Tom, lady duels were fought over, petty, silly little things and throwaway comments, unlike manly man duels at the time, which were fought over such important topics as garden fence height, disagreeing too vociferously with the findings of a scientific paper on chaffinches, or who got the last round in. Stuff that's worth dying for.
Yeah, stuff that's very important.
Yes.
What time you should start your lawnmower on a Sunday morning.
Absolutely, yes. The vital stuff. Yep. Anyway, in this instance, Mrs. Elphinstone's pistol shot blew Lady Braddock's hat off her head, so very nearly...
Deliberately?
Did her in. No, I think she was aiming for her.
She just a really good shot. Just takes her hat off. Takes the gun out of her hand.
Yeah, she threw it up in the air, yeah. And then reached under her leg to pull off a trick shot whilst doing a backflip.
I'm not trying to kill you. I'm just trying to shoot off all your clothes. As a bra pings off.
Wow, this has gone very carry on suddenly, hasn't it?
Yeah.
She does the full... Yeah. Lady Braddock's does the full Barbara Windsor.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Whilst Lord Braddock's monocle pops out.
Barbara Windsor's basically a Cockney Dolly Parton, isn't she?
Yes, she is, yes.
American listeners. Yeah.
A Cockney Dolly Parton. I love that. Oi, Jolene!
Those
Jolene!
boots are made for walking.
Jolene! You slag. Please don't steal my man, Jolene. I'll have words. I'll have beef with you, Jolene.
Oh dear.
So yes,
Dolly Parton's song. Working 9 to 5. Gotta get myself a living. Islands in the stream.
Working down the Albert Docks. It's all taking and no giving, Tom. It's all taking and no giving. Apart from those Cray twins, lovely boys. Always came round for a spot of tea and a jelly deal.
Always good to their mother, wouldn't they? Always good to their mother. Yeah.
So, yes, Mrs. Elphinstone's pistol shot blew Lady Braddock's hat off, at which point the two picked up their swords and set to fencing. And the duel only ended when Lady Braddock managed to wound Mrs. Elphinstone in the arm, drawing first blood and therefore winning the duel. After which Elphinstone had to write a letter of apology and all was settled. And then in 1886, genuinely, two women went to war and fought a duel over a disagreement over whether France or the USA had better qualified doctors.
Bloody right.
Too bloody right. Everyone knows that it's the French.
Yeah.
So women duelling wasn't particularly uncommon, but an all-woman rumble in the jungle? Now that was something new, Tom. And so we come over to our duel, which wasn't just fought between two noble women, it was, as I've said, fought topless.
Yeah, I still am looking forward to the context behind this.
And Tom, wait until I tell you, it was fought over flower arranging.
What? Why was a disagreement about the flowers?
Well, it was the culmination of a great social rivalry between the two participants. These two ladies, Princess Pauline Metternich and Countess Anastasia Kielmannsegg, they absolutely hated each other and had done for several years. They were arch rivals in Vienna's ridiculously opulent social scene, with each claiming to kind of be the high socialite of the entire Austro-Hungarian Empire. Pauline was the daughter of one of Austria's most senior diplomats. Also, as a fun side fact, was married to her own uncle, which is Habsburglicious, isn't it?
And had 3 eyes.
Yes. And an enormous chin.
And that's going to be another one of the drawings in this week's episode.
Anna, on the other hand, was a Russian and was married to the German-born governor of Lower Austria. So she was basically an outsider and a bit of a pretender, but incredibly wealthy and very gregarious. And because she was an outsider and she wasn't easily accepted, it made her doubly determined to get accepted on the Vienna social scene.
With fantastic flower arrangements.
With incredible floral imagination. And so she joined the boards and councils of pretty much every social club and event in town, which is where she pretty quickly got clashing with Princess Pauline. And the hatred between the two came to a head in summer 1892 when it came to organising the Vienna Music and Theatrical Exhibition.
It's a cracking event if people were considering going.
It was the biggest event in Vienna, which was the social capital of the world at the time. It was really, really quite something. I mean, you talked the other day, I think you were talking about...
The waltz, yes.
The waltz houses that had swans and on lakes indoors.
And a slide. A giant slide. These places sounded fantastic. It was like Las Vegas.
Gonna set my soul on fire.
It's a cracking Cher impression, Sam. It really is.
It really is, isn't it? Yeah. You bastard. So yes, the Vienna Musical and Theatrical Exhibition, put back in my place, Pauline was the president, whilst Anastasia was the acting president of the Ladies' Committee. Ooh, and if there's one thing we know about local politics, Tom, it pretty quickly comes to blows. And both thought that it was their God-given right, and not only their God-given right, Tom, but their duty to have the honour of sorting out the flower arrangements for this festival.
It's a very important job.
It's an incredibly important job. I mean, lives are on the line, Tom. Lives are on the line. Can you imagine if you got tulips instead of pansies? I mean, fuck my life.
Hey.
It would be the end of civilization as we know it.
You'd forget it not, wouldn't you, Sam?
You would forget it not. Very good. Very good. So, yes, they ended up getting into a right Viennese whirl about the whole thing, Tom. Hey!
Sure we did that.
It got so heated that they decided the only way to sort the whole thing out and decide who the ultimate queen of the Austrian social scene was to have a duel to first blood.
God, I'm still imagining the scene as things started to hot up with the flower display.
Bouquets were thrown, Tom. Bouquets were thrown.
Did one of them turn up after the other one had started and was like, I cannot believe they've put the buddleias there. Nobody ever uses dahlias as a filler flower. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
I'm very impressed with your knowledge of this.
Foxgloves next to an orchid? What the fuck is this? You are
What
disgusting.
kind of Russian wank is this?
That's like Gordon Ramsay, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fucking dahlias with your fucking clematis. What the fuck do I look like?
Call that a fucking centrepiece.
Fuck off. Bring me the fucking hyacinths.
Get the fuck out of my flower shop.
The amaryllis is too fucking tall.
I'm very impressed with your knowledge of flowers.
Shove your fucking buddleias up your fucking ass.
I like red ones. So,
Red arses.
full of buddleia, yes.
That's what I would do if I'm Emperor of the Byzantine Empire. I would have a line of peasants bent over with buddleias sticking out their asses. It's just to give the office a sort of bit more class.
In fact, buddleias can be quite tall, can't they? So you can have the peasants leaning over and create some kind of floral arch for you to parade through.
For people coming in to visit the emperor, you've got to walk through the arch.
Yeah. You don't have a page boy with a trumpet. You've got farting peasants with flowers up their arse. It's when one of them trumpets a little too hard and the flower pops out.
I just imagine the visitors walking past and going, "What in carnation is this?"
Hey, oh, who knew you had so many flower puns lined up, waiting to go?
Good grief.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So, whilst most aristocrats at this time, men or women, would have chosen a champion or sidekick to fight for them, because obviously you don't want to risk wounding or killing a valuable aristocrat when just some nobody would do. But these two, they meant it. Who would you
bring in with you? I would take the Undertaker. I'd have a disagreement with someone over something petty, and I said, "Well, I've got a second." And just get on the old phone, and then out from behind the curtains walks the Undertaker. There you go. He's the guy you're going to be fighting, wanker.
Right. Anyway, so with these two, it was personal, and they were going to fight themselves. So they had to pick a battleground that was somewhere far enough away that it wouldn't be watched and cause gossip and scandal by their Viennese friends, and they wouldn't be shunned for their behaviour by their fellow ladies. And so they went all the way to fucking Liechtenstein, Tom.
Wow.
They travelled to a place called Vaduz on August 23rd, 1892. Now, their seconds, who were there to cheer for their side and to
oil up their boobs.
Oh, yes. Their fluffers, in to cheer for their side and catch any breaking of the rules, were, and here's some names I'm not going to be able to pronounce, Princess Schwarzenberg for Princess Pauline, and Countess Kinsky for Baroness Anastasia. Countess Kinsky, yes. She puts business cards up in post boxes near me.
Countess Kinky.
Yeah.
Welcome. What are you here for? I offer oral or full sex.
I am here for the full boots and leather experience. Countess Kinsky sounds like the...
You have 15 minutes, come on, hurry up. Yeah.
Sounds like the sidekick of the Duchess from My Dad Wrote a Porno, actually.
I've not listened to that.
Oh,
Can
you
we
must.
stop giving listeners better ideas than to listen to this?
So, the umpire for the whole thing was going to be a Polish noblewoman called Baroness Lublinska, who was there to partly oversee and make sure everything was done by the rules and to offer final judgment, but more importantly, she was there to act as a field medic, because incredibly unusually, both for a woman and particularly for a noblewoman, the Baroness was a trained surgeon. And actually travelled all the way from Poland to oversee the event. So, in a roundabout and very stretched way, she was both of their sidekicks. Trying to make it vaguely on topic. And she had some ideas, Tom, about how the duel should be fought safely. Namely, that the two women must fight topless.
Ah, so she was a trained surgeon and a lesbo.
Yes, and like most trained surgeons, Tom, she was a horrible lech. In reality, what she actually argued, quite rightly, was that sepsis was a very real possibility, and she was worried about fibres of clothing getting into any wounds and causing the lady's legs to fall off a few weeks after the duel. And so she said that since it was all above the belt, you should be naked, so that the only thing that was going to hurt you was a quick blow from a sword, and hopefully, fingers crossed, no one would die weeks later. You
That's
might die at the time, but
I was imagining a very, very creepy old doctor.
The venerable members of the Viennese Medical Council have held an extraordinary meeting and recommend...
And that also for your safety, it is very important that you are suitably oiled to deflect all sword blows.
Absolutely. And we insist on there being some music.
Yes. And also to make sure that there's no cheating and that no one has hidden any armour, I will have to have a good feel just to make sure that everyone's within the rules.
This is a charitable gesture. Anyway, cue the music, please.
This is horrible.
Cue the music.
Well, I think actually, Tom, the music that they were fighting to was "But you can blow her hat off." Da, 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 da. Yes, unfortunately, no, it was done for proper medical reasons. And if you do want a slightly pornographic and lecherous look, then you'll have to go and find one of the paintings done by contemporary artists who recreated the event for newspapers and entertainment later on, of which there are several.
Oh dear.
So, with a sharp word to all the coachmen and attendants present, all of the men, to walk a long way away and turn their backs, the fighters stripped off and picked up their swords. There wasn't any shooting this time, as far as we know, probably because they didn't want anyone to actually die.
Straight to swordy cuffs.
Straight to swordy cuffs, yep. No shooty cuffs, no fisty cuffs, just swordy cuffs, just stabby cuffs. Now, by all accounts, and not entirely surprisingly, neither lady really knew what they were doing, or actually really wanted to fight.
And my hands are bleeding. You're holding the wrong end, you silly bint. Just like you were doing with the bloody foxgloves.
Oh, I don't know what to do with the pointy end. Oh, I bet you bloody do.
Very sharp, this. Oh.
Not the biggest sabre you've seen either, you dirty bitch.
Oh dear.
And because neither of them really wanted to fight or knew what they were doing, it took several minutes, and actually until the end of the third round, for anyone to make a serious effort. At which point, with a sudden dash forward and presumably an almighty clattering of noble tits, Countess Anastasia managed to slash Princess Pauline's nose slightly. Just a scratch.
Oh, you bitch.
Ploughing on. But theoretically, it was enough to end the duel. Now, at this point, their seconds, their sidekicks, should have immediately called a halt to the fight, as first blood had been drawn. Unfortunately, at the sight of that blood, both of them had fainted, Tom. Which is not entirely surprising, that given that in corsets it's hard enough for anyone to stay conscious, even without the excitement of a duel or the panic of blood. And so, because they were both unconscious, no one called a halt. So Pauline proceeded to stab Anastasia in the arm.
In the eyeballs.
In the eyeball.
Repeatedly.
Yes. In the
You
dick.
might be getting the hang of this.
What is with the sound effects with you at the moment? So Pauline proceeded to stab Anastasia in the arm before the surgeon, Baroness Lubinska, waded in to break them up.
Oh dear.
And, of course, at the sound of the screams from the two fighters, the coachmen and attendants all turned and ran in to help, at which point the Baroness had to beat them off with her umbrella. Not in that way.
Which end?
Steady.
Which end of the umbrella?
Hook up the prostate.
Stand back, everyone. It's very important that I get involved at the moment. I heard some screams.
No. We're not bringing him back. That's horrible. No. Lead them off with her umbrella and told the dirty perverts to turn their backs and keep their distance. Including you.
Oh, all right.
Now, unfortunately, because no one had been keeping score, because the scorekeepers were unconscious, both women declared victory for themselves. Anna for drawing first blood, and Pauline for delivering the first proper wound. In the end, once the seconds had recovered, with a liberal dose of smelling salts, presumably, they decided to call it a draw and make the fighters hug and make friends, which apparently they did. Both being understandably pretty shocked by what had happened and the actual realities of sword fighting, which I suspect was fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I imagine so.
So, yeah, there we go. Now, despite only using nobility for the duel in the hope that word of it would never get out, so by having women of class and standard present, you hope they wouldn't go gossiping, it pretty quickly made world news.
Of course. Because women, if there's one thing women don't like doing, it's gossiping, Sam. It shouldn't have been difficult to keep it under wraps.
No comments. So despite attempts to stop it from getting out, it pretty quickly made world news, being published in an Italian newspaper and then spreading around the rest of the world.
A bit like coronavirus.
Oh, too soon. But quite funny. Unfortunately, no reliable source has ever been found to suggest that it really happened, or at least to prove that it really happened. Princess Pauline was asked about it in years afterwards and always claimed that Italian reporters had made it up to pass the time, and neither woman ever wrote about it in their memoirs. But of course they wouldn't, would they, if they were trying to keep it a secret? So who knows?
And I find it very hard to believe that the Italian media would take satisfaction in having two topless women sword fighting, for example.
Absolutely, yes.
TV.
It's entirely the kind of thing that would repulse Italian media.
The Italian television stations would never, ever air that sort of content at 2:00 in the afternoon.
No, absolutely not. They would never do such a thing. They'd certainly never take that exact concept and then use it to present the weather. That's exactly the kind of thing that Italy wouldn't do.
Never do that. Never do that.
No.
Very un-Italian.
That is frightfully un-Italian, yes. I, for one, am shocked, and they should be ashamed of themselves. So, there we go, Tom. There we have it, to steal your phrase.
Yeah, there you have it, absolutely. Cracking story. Again, yep, very, very you, Sam.
Very me.
Finding a ridiculous story.
Let's set myself a challenge, good. Tom. I'd like to set myself a challenge.
Very good. That leaves us with pandemics for next week, doesn't it?
It is pandemics next week, yes. So, once again, if you found any great history podcasts, any series, any books that you're reading, great resources, we've got a couple we can shout about, do let us know, and we'll do a bit of an audience participation segment where we talk about the kind of things that you're doing to keep yourself entertained, keep your spirits up whilst you're locked inside. And then we'll talk about horrible planet-ending pandemics, just to bring it back round again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And do tell your friends. Come on, people.
Yeah, please do tell your friends about us. It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge, huge difference. So, yes, you can get in touch with us via email. That was geniuscast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. That was Genius Podcast. You can find us on Instagram @That Was Genius. And you can find us on Twitter @that_was_genius. Right. We will see you next week for what is bound to be a light-hearted...
morale lifting
and entirely unharrowing look at pandemics through history.
Yep, and Sam and I already know a little bit about some of these, and it's not good. Your odds aren't good. Yes,
it's not the first time that I was going to make a joke about you being a super spreader then, but couldn't quite phrase it right. Right, say goodbye, Tom. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.